What's happening? Benton here. This is a I like the sound of my voice production, which is the main reason I'm going live. Although I have a couple of little things here on the notepad. Maybe I'll just go back through the entire notebook and try to figure out what's going on here. I've certainly had a lot of content ideas. And by the way, this is non tent to be sure. I'm going to go ahead and put that banner up. Yeah, this is the non tent disclaimer. Much of this is going to be non tent. I also wanted to get into some discussion of I've been considering doing some private live streams in the daytime, especially Z's live right now. OTW is going live, I believe it in 1 hour. And sometimes I just want to talk, right? Like I'd like to. Maybe I've got something to get off of my throat chakra, right? We did have a little bit of throat chakra talk on the walk and talk this morning, which was rained out, so it ended up being the sit in my car and talk. I know at the Bex Factor is live right now. If anybody hasn't been checking her out this morning, I think she's coming up on like 6 hours, something like that. And I don't even know. It seems like she's got her thing going. There was like 12 people there just a couple of minutes ago. So I don't even know that anybody would leave there and come here. Maybe some would try to be in both live chats, perhaps. So I don't know. Am I talking to myself? Is this interface I'm looking at? Is this now with three in the house? And I guess I've trained myself to expect a certain level of attention when I go live. So it's interesting, how quickly I can sort of feel entitled to that level of attention. When in reality, it seems like this realm, is more or less indifferent in many respects with regards to me or my silly human psychology and personality. What's up, Rob? Good to see you. There you go, Rob. That's what I wanted to hear. Thanks, Rob. Rob knows what I need on some level, anyway, or he does in this case, I should say. Yeah, I would immediately leave there and come here, although I would never find myself there. Yeah. Uh, I'm in and out. I enjoyed over there. I know Woody at a certain time was fairly critical, it seemed, although he might have been making jokes. Shout out to Dark Glasses Woody, who I don't believe showed up this morning. Not that he's obligated, but at a certain point, I was ranting and raving. I was on one to some extent. And certainly, again, back to whining about no internet connection. But I'm stretching my legs a little bit on some of these broadcasts because I would rather be playing other content and maybe responding it. Although I noticed OTW has sort of countered me restreaming him by just going ahead and restreaming me, which I know that's kind of bad for the audience in some cases. So then I stop. It's interesting to watch those dynamics, but it's not that interesting, right? The novelty of just the StreamYard and the panels and that's one of the notes. Making love with my computers or making love to my computers. I have, a pretty decent mini PC here by some folks' standards. Oh, shout out to NJ Jeep Girl, who I saw her was in a live chat somewhere saying that somebody wanted her to make some content. She's like, yeah, I don't, basically, she doesn't have a computer that's suitable. And I'm not here to push Linux. I'm just saying, like, and I know at one point that B Smiley was talking about not having a computer, and I came very close to just buying him a computer, um, something lower end and kind of used, but then still decent spec wise. And um, forget about Linux. There's certainly ways to run on older hardware. There's enough deals to be had from what I've seen with these laptops and maybe just avoid the Chromebooks, but depending on what level of content one is attempting to produce, there's not that much hardware required. And then these mini PCs, um, like this one I have is, I think I paid right at 330 with the taxes and everything, but there's always something decent around 250 bucks, somewhere in that price range, it seems like. And then, well, then your monitor and all of that will be separate, but a lot of folks already have that, right? But yeah, thanks, Rob. Much appreciated. Hey, 9 folks. Wow. Shout out to 9 folks. So Bex might be coming by. She said she might stop by. This is probably the last day of the synthetic cannabinoids. I thought I had one full vape left, but it turns out that it's already been more than halfway. Actually, it's only probably got maybe an hour or two of hitting it left, and then uh, I have like 7 other ones that have a little bit left in them. But my tolerance is so high now. I'm vaping so much to get the same effect. Uh, so this is probably the last day. I can't make any promises, but the chances of me going anywhere, which would require me to go to Oklahoma at a minimum, and they've been doing road work on that bridge, and it's last time I actually tried to go that way to see if I could maybe snag some THCA flower, maybe when I was doing a little more free spending, but it was hard to get over that bridge with all the road construction. So probably most likely going to be the last day on the THCO, and then I would look for at least a couple of broadcasts next week from the library on the proper internet connection. Perhaps I will have the opportunity to, actually prepare a broadcast for you folks instead of this non-tent disclaimer. And I'm not even going to try to put up the do better content. That was this morning. I believe I met that standard this morning. Good to see you, Roy. It's amazing. My vision it's hard to say it's improving. It's definitely much less bad since I've been on the beef, and I'm seeing with the beef, it's just my body can only make use of smaller amounts as far as on a regular. I see that dynamic is there. My gallbladder is letting me know, it's giving me the business, right? Because I think initially there's so much of an attraction to something like fatty cuts of meat, which is what I've been consuming, and then also had 2 egg yolks as well. But there's definitely going to be a limit to what I can make use of. So for me, that's going to be the thing, is getting a hold of smaller amounts of meat, being able to prepare smaller amounts potentially. But then it's much more convenient and economical in some ways to just cook an entire roast, right? But now what am I just going to carry around containers with hunks of beef? I don't know, maybe. But yeah, I've noticed I'm not as cold. One of the effects of this illness over the last year, and we can get into the cancer grift too. I think that's in the notes. No, that's also on the. It's also in the notes. The cancer grift. Maybe I'll just start. I don't know. Let's forget about that. I'm just going to give myself homework. I used to say that EBT assigns himself homework. Hey, what's up, Capricorny? Good to see you. Shout out to the chat. But anyway, let me digress off of my digressions. But yeah, there's some version of throat chakra as far as my own practices of communication and working on my broadcasting skills and enjoying hearing myself talk. Some folks seem to enjoy hearing me talk at times, but this is non-tent warning, non-tent disclaimer. I see Mr. Fox. Good to see you, brother. Good day, Benton, Rob, Roy, and all. Good to see you, sir. But yeah, my gallbladder, and I speak very lovingly to my gallbladder these days. It's working overtime with this. But there's something to that animal fat. I'm telling you. I could see myself, maybe doing certain restrictive diets here and there. This watermelon thing, I would never be like, oh, I'm going 30 days of nothing but watermelon. To me, I've been down not with fruit, but I've been down enough with the fad dieting and the extreme type of stuff but I've been eating like a large mini watermelon a day pretty much for like 5 days in a row, I guess, 4 or 5 days in a row, 3 days maybe. Well, if you count, some of the other stuff I was doing when I was still getting it from the grocery store. I found an actual, produce wholesaler or whatever, glorified produce stand. But yeah, it's good times, and the ox bile certainly helps a lot. I forgot. I never accounted for how much that would be ridiculed and mocked, and it is funny, the idea of ox bile. That is humorous. So shout out to autism, which may be the reason why I perhaps missed those dynamics initially. But yeah, good to see you, Mr. Fox. I'm trying to keep this somewhat positive around here. I see folks like uh, Mr. Fox and Jackie Fox tuning in at times. So, they seem to be, from what I can tell, seem to be more positive minded individuals, whatever that means. But while also, I presumably willing to entertain at least some of the full doomer style of presentment that I certainly exhibit over time, or regardless of how this thing unfolds. Wow, 13 in the house. Wasn't even really expecting double digits. Now, and part of this is this is something else. Hey, what's up, Terry Miller? This is the race to the bottom in a way, and certainly, popularity and broadcast themselves, I would assume, would have some sort of a cyclical nature, right? A boom and a bust, some sort of cycle, maybe even like infinity symbol, just kind of back and forth around the figure eight, as it were. But yeah, I'm still toying with the idea of just doing what I'm doing right now, more or less, especially from the motel. So then that way I can just go with the icon and do some chitter chatter, open up the old throat chakra and listen to myself talk and cover some notes and, maybe see what the audience wants to talk about, maybe even just an hour if it was that. And then with the walk and talks. And then as I transition into potentially into IRL content, although even that's not, for sure, right? So I like to make some of these plans as much as we know that, none of this may come to fruition. I may not, I'm not promised tomorrow. And uh, something that bears repeating, surely none of this will amount to a hill of beans. But yeah, Duggan, 6 packs of beef, eh? What is that? It's not a euphemism, is it? What's going on here, Roy? But do you buy beef in bulk? I don't know. I'm confused. But yeah, goodness. So, and I've been thinking about this idea of convalescing, if folks are familiar with this term. So, convalesce means it's a process whereby one recovers one's health over a period of time after an illness or medical treatment. So I've certainly been doing versions of that, and just we know with the inflation and just how expensive it can be to live. I more or less spent several, a few $1,000s actually. Yeah. Well, but some of that I would have spent regardless on feeding myself, right? But so let's just call it 2 grand to for 2 months of convalescence, right? Not too bad if you ask me. Certainly less expensive than any medical facility I would expect to convalesce at. So even realistically being able to digest this amount of food in the first place, I'm on high levels of the papaya powder, which certainly helps my body deal with a lot of this. And then, like I talked about, the taurine and the ox bile, as hilarious as that sounds in a way. But yeah, it's all coming together. So, and I've gained probably. It's hard to tell. I go up and down so much, but I think probably a solid 4 to 5 pounds. So, um, that's encouraging in a way. If I could claw my way to 130, uh, and stay right around there in a range, maybe 126 to 133, maybe in a range. I think that would work for me. That'd be right on the. It'd be very close to almost not underweight for my height and frame size. What's up, Sunshine Time? She seemed like she was wanting to come over here, but only to join the broadcast, but only if I invited her on some level. But yeah, the link was already posted. I went ahead and posted the link. I just sort of assumed that, like many of the recent broadcasts, uh, uh, nobody would click the link. But I will say, with it being perhaps the last day of this long drug binge I've been engaged in, this long, however long it's been now that I've been very intoxicated every day, multiple times a day. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. This is be just vapes alone. I don't know that these abuse could go far beyond this level. while also, not damaging my lungs in the long run, certainly, or doing my best not to. And we do recall Mr. Unslaved, and I've broached this topic a couple of times, and some folks have asked, seeming at one point to, he broached the topic of me and him having some version of a one-on-one conversation. Well, that's always possible. Not always, but that's certainly something that could happen. Although not at this time in the morning, I'm assuming. So there's I have to have better internet. Oh, be interesting trying to fit back into that whole dynamic with Mr. Enslaved show. Certainly still a fanboy. Um, I still didn't get to check out Yurt's replay. He did a nighttime broadcast, which is somewhat unusual for him of late. Someone mentioned, I think Bex was talking about, I was going live super early, for my standards, like 12:30 a.m., 1 a.m. I'm realizing with my food prep and everything, and the timing of, utilizing these slow cookers, 3 o'clock works for me very well, 3 a.m. So I'm figuring out the meat cooks so much faster than the veggies. There's really no point in, since I have these extra cookers, I'm cooking the veggies and the meat separate. Mundane again. Shout out to Christos for the proper characterization of this non-tent, which is mundane vlog, right? But then at times I do manage to make things interesting with the help of the audience. Certainly, it seems so. Roy, any thoughts on the having a just sending out emails? Whatever. Basically, when I schedule a live on YouTube, as far as I know, I could send an email to whoever wants to be a part of these private live streams. Then I can schedule a private live stream, and as long as the person is logged in. But see, now I'm not necessarily trying to get people's. See, it may not actually even be doable because now I'm realizing probably not everybody is logged in. But then the people who chat, the people who post in the live chat are logged into something, right? So I don't know. It's something I need to think through more, I guess. But just if I was to just do private live streams for the people who would want to hear that, right? And then the days I do drag myself to the library, those would be public, presumably. Although I could switch it up and be like, hey, now here I am at the library on the Good Connection, just for the kind of the insiders, right? But not, I don't really like the idea of an in group and an out group and all that. An in group automatically creates an out group, I should say. So maybe everything being public and out in the open for the most part. Maybe that's the way to go. I see Bex down there. Good to see you, Miss. But yeah, you might want to wait, Bex, to come up and have a combo because this is probably the last day of the synthetic cannabinoids. So I'm going to need like 2 to 3 days to sort of normalize. That's mainly sleep. I don't sleep when I first come off of cannabinoids. I'll just lay there and doze off here and there. But yeah, a couple of nights. It's I'm already sort of turning 3 days max. I'll be completely fine. The coffee is actually more of a factor now. I'm back up to 2 24-ounce dose. 2 24-ounce. There's 12 ounces twice. Let's say this properly. So, and then now the last couple of days, they've been so close together. Now I'm wanting that third one. And this is the addiction. Obviously, I understand inside and out how this works. So, and then truck driving, I would drink double this at a minimum. So. And then with the pour over, if anybody does, I don't know if any folks grind their own beans and use a pour over, which is like it's a funnel basically that goes on top of one's travel mug, or in my case, glass tumbler, because I like to drink the coffee now, but let some of that heat go into the glass, right? That thick glass, which I broke one of them recently. That's a bummer, but yakety yak. Sleep is a rare thing. I sleep quite well, but not necessarily for very long. But and I've talked about it before. The long haul trucking certainly leveled up my sleep. Although living in the streets and all of that certainly did as well, which I'm probably going back to. And I'm not sure if folks are folks just so checked out that it doesn't even sink in, and I'm not really even challenging the audience. I just mean, some of the peripheral characters that are that may skew a little more normie. I think some of us are just maybe just know by now that, yeah, homelessness is fairly normalized in society. So it's really, yeah, we understand what you mean, Benton. You're just sleeping in a shelter, or depending on the weather, sleeping in a tent, but then, having some form of being able to keep up with my basic hygiene so that I can go to libraries in the daytime, and which I'm tend to do anyway, right? To some extent. Although, I'm starting to think that, maybe as we go through fall into winter, and maybe if this so-called variant of concern actually becomes a thing, which I will obviously have, just that's a live stream every day where I can come on and sort of break down what's going on with the fake pandemic, or the it's the revival of the fake pandemic or whatever. And so yeah, there's certainly a lot of ways to go with the content in the future. So looking forward to that. But again, this is the non-tent, so we're just sort of hanging out. Uh, I do like the hanging out and just I'm talking, right? Um, Although certainly if there's other folks that, and again, you might want to skip today, Bex. Just that's only because of it will be weird. It's going to be weird no matter what when I'm this intoxicated, and I'm certainly intoxicated. And I'm going to have to figure out how to stock up on some THCO, man. This stuff's too good. It's just too dadgum good. And I really wasted like half of this. I had 9 vapes total, 9 2,000 milligram vapes, and then I gave one away, which I like that I do that. I like to share. I gave one away to a lady I met at the tobacco shop. Interesting character, to be sure. Thanks, Sunshine Time. Indeed. Yep. Yeah, I like what Bex is doing. I don't claim to understand it necessarily, and there's enough differences, inherent into the male female dynamics, but there's something to it. There's something to it. I haven't quite put my finger on whatever this is that people are doing, but I have to think that whatever my remaining time in this incarnation is, necessarily, I'm going to have to exchange value for fiat, right? I mean, is that the way to say it? I mean, that seems like a thing that's going to happen. As much as I can go a few months, potentially sleeping rough, but then we get into what's actually winter, and how much traveling of the North America do I want to do, or the US specifically? And then now I get into how far am I willing to stray from Arkansas, in the context of a uh if the thing comes back full force, as far as the measures, the fake pandemic measures, if and when that all comes back, fucking full on in our faces, there's going to be certain areas I'm probably not going to want to be. It's more of a state thing, because if I just happen to be in like Dallas, Fort Worth, or whatever, I'm confident in my ability to physically escape the metroplex. Although, if the illnesses become more debilitating, I've certainly experienced a degree of debilitation already. That's inarguable. If I want to tie this in with the so-called cancer grift, you know, um, I'll rename the channel the Cancer Grift. It's like, you can't. That's the thing. These people don't seem to realize is they can run around saying that I'm faking having cancer all they want. Number one, I never said that I did. Number two, uh, I'm not going to the medical system to get diagnosed. Number three, as far as I know, my body could have fought a lot of it already. I have no idea. Maybe I was ate up with it and I'm not now. We don't know, man. The medical system, the corporatized medical system, Benito Mussolini's helicopter hand, that particular thumb fingernail or whatever it is, um, you know, with the fungus all over it. Toenail might be a better way to put it, but y'all know what I mean. Do I even need to say it at this point? Because I'm certainly just repeating myself and sort of tilling the same soil. So I'm very sensitive to that. So I think part of probably why people aren't hitting the link over here is think I've made it pretty clear. I'm just not interested in these same loops. Like when I think wasn't Freedom Grower here, and I mean I enjoy I enjoy, and he hasn't really been back, by the way. So and that was how long ago was that? A week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So accounting for my own behavior, Notch hasn't been around, but then I know he was probably dealing with his own life as far as his broken foot and all of that. You know. Hmm. Well, I mean, in Thunder Chicken, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm in no way trying to imply that the vapes are good for me or are not harmful. Inhaling, what I'm inhaling is certainly uh, causing some form of lung damage, but most likely my body will heal that, just like whatever lung damage. I'm certainly, if I had gone to the medical system at a certain point when I have a podcast episode that you can hear that I'm really not able to fully catch my breath. So I'm sure if I went to the medical system, they'd be like, yeah, you've had whatever percentage of lung damage, but then that heals, or the potential to heal is there. And I don't think there's any doubt that my body has healed to a fairly decent extent over the last year, approximately, whatever that time frame's been that I've the strong herbs, the Swedish bitter herbs, you know artichoke extracts, all sorts of tinctures. I mean, like I probably had 40, let's not exaggerate. I bet I had 30 different tinctures at one point. Like that's not an exaggeration. So, and some of it was like multiple brands because I've tried so many things, and just, paring that down to probably $150 a month worth of whatever I'm going to end up taking, which will most likely be that magnesium that I like, which is fairly expensive. And then the kind of middle range, I guess, or lower end. I thought they were, but they're actually stronger than I thought. These digestive enzymes, the Now brand digestive enzymes, are actually stronger than I thought. So that's good. And then the ox bile and the taurine, obviously. So I'm enjoying. I'm looking forward to my position. It's just I expect much more extreme fasting in the future because, again, asking ye shall receive. I did ask for asceticism to some extent, and some of that appears like it's going to happen through physically debilitating illness, right? Which I've inarguably already suffered for an entire year. I mean, that people can make fun of me all they want. Anybody can see that something has happened over this last year or whatever the time frame is, and my mom. So much so that the last 2 or 3 times I've visited my mom in person, she's just like on the verge of tears because of how I look, and she always says something about it. I've lost so much weight, and you folks have. I don't think it's. I think it's difficult to understand just how much muscle mass I had at a certain time for a guy my size, anyway, who is naturally thin. I put on a lot of fucking, uh, I put on some slabs, as you might call them. It's fucking slabs of back muscles and chest muscles and fucking lats and triceps, biceps, and forearms and all of that. You know, that's not even talking about the lower body. So, and again, the being humbled, right? Getting puffed up with the muscles and look all fucking strutting around like just in like some fucking ridiculous fucking peacock or something. And then from that to more or less like Mitchell's probably bigger and stronger than me at this point, or close. I mean, again, I'm back on meat, so I'm not going to view myself that way for very long, but if at all. But it's important for me to sort of factor that in, right? Yeah. Well, this is to be specific, Thunder Chicken. What I'm taking has some Delta 8, which is it acts very quickly. It's got a lot of euphoric effects, but then it wears off quickly as well. It comes quick, it leaves quick. That's your just standard distillate, right? Your D8, your Delta 8 distillate. It's the equivalent of Delta 9 distillate, but it's weaker, right? So it doesn't last as long. It's medium euphoria, then it's gone. But the person can make up for the strength of effects by hitting it a bunch of times real fast, right? So I've done an entire vape of just straight D8 and didn't like it at all. So this has got some Delta 8 in it, I'm sure, because it hits quick. But then the THCO is the acetate That's the full synthetic as far as the feds are concerned, because it does not naturally occur in the plant, but it's made from CBD, lest we forget. And whatever that process is, I'm sure it's not a clean process. We don't know what the solvents are. We don't understand whatever the byproduct chemicals are. So yeah, I'm not a chemist, but I have enough knowledge of chemistry to understand this is not good for my health. But I am, in a position where it's probably not going to matter as long as I don't actually develop popcorn lung, which I don't expect that I will. Right. Apologies for falling behind in the chat. I haven't seen. I see Bex posted. I haven't quite had a chance to read that yet. But yeah, appreciate you being here, Miss Bex. Euphoria never lasts long, indeed, Terry Miller. So I've talked before about what the THCO does, but then there's also probably Thunder Chicken a small amount of Delta 9 THC, which when I was researching all this about 6 weeks ago, probably a month, 6 weeks, probably around 6 weeks ago, there were still vendors who would even ship to Arkansas, which has since banned all of this. So now effectively none of these online vendors are going to ship to Arkansas, most likely. Although some probably still won't even care, and they'll just do it anyway, perhaps. But that's how loosey goosey, And again, I purchased something over the counter that the DEA has already said they consider Schedule 1. That's just how confused and you know it's a tangled mess in many ways with the synthetic cannabinoids, but. Yeah, so I could actually I saw that somebody was selling something they claimed to be 95% Delta 9 THCO, which is just like crazy. I could do that all day, every day with some tolerance breaks. And that's probably like way over a year's supply. I'm assuming. I'm just guessing. I don't know. That's crazy, craziness, man. Craziness. Or probably a year anyway of drug abuse. To me, it's somewhat similar to Delta 9 edibles, Thunder Chicken, the THCO is. And again, the Delta 8 is weaker than the Delta 9. So if a person could actually procure Delta 9, but it seems to me like I could even get just straight Delta 8 THCO, like 95, that's something that they claim, if I'm willing to believe the certificate of analysis, it's like 95% or whatever, 92%. Not that I need it to be that level, but although arguably that would lessen the chance of whatever these byproducts are, but who knows? I don't know what they're testing for, so I have no idea. But yeah, I just sometimes I just go through cycles sometimes where I get effed up a lot, and that's what I've been doing. So um, I could afford it. I chose to do it, and now it's about to be some version of I've made my bed, now I lie in it. But I'm looking forward to maybe walking 4 to 5 miles a day, right? With not a lot of weight, but a little bit of a backpack. I can see just the walk and talks my fitness level and my ability. My legs aren't quite as they seem to have gotten a little stronger. Then again, certainly the meat and the eggs will tie into some of this. And I feel good just on the egg yolks and the tuna. I don't know that the beef I don't think is necessary across the board, but I definitely think I'm getting better rest. It seems like even if I get up and go to the bathroom a bunch because of the watermelon, which I certainly did last night and the night before, when I am asleep, I'm getting a lot of rest, even if it's an hour and a half at a time. So I think a lot of like I know the Cali Muscle, when he did his 32 days on the watermelon thing, he said he wanted to go longer, but he wasn't getting sleep. And I think part of that is just a lot of us get up in our heads about sleep, and it's just like, I can't sleep. And that aggravation and being in that annoyed emotional state guarantees that we're not going to at least be able to, okay, well, I just urinated now in an hour and a half. I'm going to need to get up and do this again because of the strong diuretic effect, right? Or what can be a strong diuretic effect. I certainly found it to be that. And my kidneys have been stimulated big time. A couple days in a row, I could just feel it. It's like almost painful, but it's that kind of good pain. My kidneys getting a workout. And, watermelon supposedly directly hydrates the kidneys. So, and especially if I'm going back into some version of, you know, burning more calories because of a more active lifestyle and sleeping rough and all of these things. certainly my testosterone will go up, but then my appetite will probably increase, and I'm going to need to be even more. A lot of my self mastery is going to come down to um, dialing in, what I'm putting in my body, which probably will be meat at times, and I'll be. Some people will think I'm damn near a vegan at times too, probably, right? But I'll be like, no, I eat meat. I just not right, not now. And I think there is the humans, we sort of want that security, and I think we want that. It seems it's like a way to resolve things. It's like, okay, I eat steak and eggs now, and this is what I eat, right? But even when I was eating that way, I would still I did pretty close to 6 months. I think maybe I had a pizza in there maybe once. Look, I'm not going. Let's just call it what it was. It was 6 months, no processed foods, but probably twice I had a Little Caesars pizza. I don't know how else to say it. But then I had some other things like avocados. Like I wasn't having. It wasn't strict carnivore for all of it, but I did. I've done carnivore for long periods. So when I say I've done like a year and a half on it, not in the strictest sense, but it was like most of the time for like a year and a half, right? But yeah, some periods I was eating avocados. I used to eat a lot of avocados. Like I've really abused my fucking digestion, man. Avocados are pretty hard to digest, and in fact, when I finally got off the booze and realized how sick I was, I can't have any amount of avocado. My body just is like, no, man, we're good. We're done with all that. I used to eat a lot of dates, but I found I can't. I eat too many, and have any of you ever gotten sick from consuming too many dates? That's not a fun illness. I've had that before, which apparently involves just having too many of certain nutrients and minerals and such. But beautiful looking live chat, by the way. Quite the eclectic mix there, folks. I think Christos was sort of bragging on his, when he does go live, right? Which is probably true. But yeah, good to see you, Thunder Chicken. Um, Yep. Bex with some well wishes there. Um, yeah, we had a heavy rain here, sunshine time, talking about a storm. A lot of lightning, a lot of lightning. Um, but so what I was saying earlier about the fake pandemic is, I could just see, right about the time I'm getting into some version of a routine, and maybe it's like, oh, okay, well, I can choose between, doing some version of a certification myself, like some kind of internet security or just whatever, whatever I would choose to go into, where maybe I could work remotely, like, I don't know what, 20 hours a week, and, make just some bare basic income, if only to just sort of know, okay, I know I'm getting this much money on this, on this schedule, right? And I like to work, by the way. I enjoy working. I've always enjoyed working to some extent ever since I first developed a work ethic. That's certainly not something that comes naturally to most folks, myself included. But yeah, I enjoy being what I view as productive, right? But not necessarily what the system itself views as productive. Shout out to 24 in the house. Exactly. Indeed. Indeed, Thunder Chicken. Yeah, THCA was. That's why this farm bill. In fact, the farm bill expires this year. I don't. Folks may not be aware of that. The 2018 farm bill accidentally, uh, you know, legalized things like THCA, which is my body. If one consumes THCA, their body will turn it into just regular delta, regular THC, right? So, but then that flower is legal. So when these people are, so like you can get flower that's just like CBD flower that somebody sprayed with THCO, but I would never do that. I mean, that's crazy to me. But the THCA flower through the farm bill, yeah, they're claiming that it technically came from hemp, right? But it's if it's flower, isn't that female? That's the female plant, right? I mean, like, what are we even talking about? And then it's, as far as my body is concerned, it's the same thing. It's regular flower. And in fact, when I started going to Washington State, when they first legalized rec, I would spend so much time in Portland that it was actually it was worth the money to get a $5 day pass for the transit, and I could actually go all the way up to Vancouver, Washington, and back, full transfer, so with no more money paid, right? It's a heck of a deal if you think about it, because that's an entire. Not only is that a different city, that's a different state technically, although it's like other side of the river. And I love that area, man. I'm in a lot of ways. I'm disappointed that I can't just go to Santa Barbara this winter. And I mean, I could, I guess, technically, but the chances of me doing that are very low, obviously. But I don't know. What do y'all think? Should I just be like that's off the board? I mean, I'm not going to be able to have a firearm, obviously. Although I understand, well, not in California. I'm not even attempting that, but certainly. So then now, two of the one of the three states is off. Half of the West Coast is now off the table. More than half by population. Yeah. So it seems kind of pointless, and I've bebopped around Texas enough. But then if it is going to be some version of like living at a homeless shelter or some kind of, you know, transient and transient society is something I've been wanting to talk about. This was at I think it was DeFreak, who I believe is over here some of the time. But I think that was on OTWs yesterday, DeFreak, and now I got to look at when am I going to want to wrap this thing up here, because OTW is going to be live soon, certainly. So it's like maybe I'll just do audience warm up for everybody, like to some extent. Why not? That'd be fun. But yeah. Well, and here's how to never get Sunshine Time says don't eat too many of the edibles. They will mess you up. I found out. Well, yeah, and I've certainly eaten too many at times, but never in a way in which some folks end up calling 911 or whatever. But the times I've eaten too many, I just go to sleep, so it's not really a big deal. But I have a lot of experience with edibles, and I figured out very early on I only eat them typically, although not always, but there's been times when I've eaten edibles all day, every day for 2 weeks at a time, 2 weeks, and couldn't even just barely talk, which is that level of stupefaction and intoxication via psychoactive, what's considered a narcotic, even though, that's debatable, obviously. When we compare it to other narcotics, it's certainly a very different thing, but, it's natural, I guess, a natural narcotic, perhaps. And that would be, in the natural form, pretty close to it anyway. And this would have been like in Oregon. I'm making my own coconut oil, weed butter, right? And then not even making edibles, just eating the butter. But my buddy my buddy got shown how to make a hard candy, but when he did it wrong, it was even better because it was chewy candy. And then he gave me a bunch of that. This was the communal type living out in Oregon at the what I've referred to as the world's coolest trailer park there in Ashland, near Ashland, Oregon. Although that's just kind of a tongue-in-cheek moniker anyway. I've had an interesting life, and I feel like I've had like 3 or 4 interesting lives already. And while I am certainly open to new novelty and novel experience in the future, I can see that the traveling around and living a certain type of traveler lifestyle, I have those skills, so I'm sure I will access those avenues of, in order to facilitate my goals and success, by the way, and my continued success. And I've talked about what is success, and this is success. And that was one of the early battles, in cultural wars, right, between certain, when Music Holds a Secret talks about battle lines being drawn and all of this, which if that was him, somebody said that, these clicks that I've talked about, people are clicking up. Well, I'm GDI, y'all. I'm goddamn independent. I don't click up, although I've certainly had clicks of my own at times, but that was more or less revolved around me. Now, I could try to behave as if this was some version of that, but I'm not real interested. That was more in my younger days. Good to see you, Christos. Last day. This is most likely the last day of the synthetic cannabinoids for now, right? Because I do have some things that I'm not going to be able to accomplish unless I'm more or less clear-headed with all my faculties all day, every day. And I'm certainly not that when I'm taking in these level of cannabinoids. Nice. But real quick, here's the method, real quick, Sunshine Time. Now I'm problem solving. Now I'm looping into problem solving, but this is just more of something I've followed, and it's hard to go wrong. So what I would do is, Sunshine Time, with edibles, whatever you think is one dose that will get you messed up, like that will you'll be fried and you'll have whatever that effect is that you're trying to get out of it. Um, I would say whatever you think would accomplish that, just have that as one dose and then cut that in half. So eat half of what you think is one dose on an empty stomach, if at all possible. That seems to help also with the timing, right? Because 45 minutes that can actually need to be a different amount of time if one has a full stomach, right? That might need to go for like an hour and a half. I've found it to be way better off to not eat, to be in a fasted state when I do eat edibles. That seems to be the best way for me, but although not 100% of the time. But then to, set the timer on your phone or make sure you remember what time, write it down if you need to. Wait a full and complete 45 minutes, set an alarm, whatever. Then if you feel okay, meaning not too messed up, which you most likely won't, then eat the other half. And then I found that I still peak out as high as if I just eaten the whole thing. But then now I'm lessening the chance that I'm going to later on want to eat more because I did eat more. I ate half. I waited 45 minutes. I ate the other half. So I ate twice. See, so it sort of takes care of that thing where the person kind of naturally wants more anyway, right? Because it is, especially if it's an actual brownie, which I only ever made actual brownies like maybe twice. And it's not my preferred way, really. I would rather have proper edibles where it doesn't, even candy or whatever, something made by somebody who, you know, put their tender loving, their own TLC into it and made something that's enjoyable to eat also, right? Candy. I knew a fella that grew his own in his backyard in Oregon and then made candy, right? And some parts of the country are way more permissive. That's in the city limits, by the way, of a town of around, I think 30,000, something like that, in Southern Oregon, which now I'm pretty much, folks who are familiar with the area certainly know where I'm talking about. Yes, on I-5 in Southern Oregon, indeed. That's not too many places that could be. So I don't know. What do y'all think, if anything, about any of that? 28 in the house. Probably going to wrap up soon and send y'all over to OTW, right? Good night, Bex. If you're indeed off to the dreamland there, the real world, as it may be, right? And there's certainly, when I talked about earlier on the walk and talk about my what I refer to as my religious conversion experience, although it's certainly not, in the context of religion as practiced, but certainly, there is absolutely a religious context, but and also the limitations of the language and people being able to, that I do mean a very specific thing there, but a direct experience of the something we may refer to as Christ consciousness, or just I would call that Jesus myself. But again, this is not about that. That's for me, right? So um, I'm only going to say that so often, just here and there. And I do want to be clear that I understand that I'm working within concepts, and I can't ever really fully separate, what has certainly been stigmatized, rightly so, organized religion, more harm than good. I'm very outspoken about the harms and ills. And, we know the tree by the fruit with respect to religion. There's really no reason for me to go back through all of that, certainly. Bexy lady, indeed. I like that. Yeah, the ladies certainly spice it up at times for a fellow like myself. So, yeah, I've always definitely enjoyed the ladies, and I don't mean in a unbecoming way or in a demeaning or in a not even demeaning, in a salacious way. There we go. I don't mean in a objectified way, although certainly, the idea of I hate to see you go, but I'd love to watch you leave. I mean, there's certain, just the male gaze, right? That there is something to that. Um, yeah, well, I can't do anything about the fact that this form produces certain levels of androgens and chemicals that, It's more or less not up to me. I do notice the ladies, even to this day, as much as I talk about, certain aspects of getting older and then just I'm retired and all of this. I hope so. Anyway, I certainly hope so. Yep. Well, actual ingredients, thunder chicken. I mean, we're still not necessarily going to, you know, yeah, but I think that's quality ingredients anyway, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know how much of them I would truly consider healthy as far as cannabis edibles, but I would say the main thing is not using, avoiding any sort of ingredients that would represent an adulterant, right? So uh, everything that's there at least providing some level of sustenance. I'm assuming that's what you mean, or giving the body something that it needs, right? Because I think it is important to, when we say healthy, to at least define what do you think you mean by that, and then what do I think you mean by that, and then if I'm inclined to agree, what do I mean? Because we may not actually agree, and we may seem to disagree, and actually, in fact, agree. And oftentimes, with folks of a certain psychological makeup or a certain type of personality, it's like fairly regularly, I'm like, oh, we're agreeing. We just the way we're talking and communicating with one another makes it seem like we're not. Makes it seem like we're in a disagreement, right? The patterns and the different dynamics at play, right? How many times have any of you experienced that in your life? Probably quite a bit. I'm certainly not unique in many of these regards, and that's where I do appreciate Christos using the word mundane, because the fact that I can demonstrate some ability to perhaps apply certain processes that may be of, as far as I can tell, may be something of my own invention or creation that I've installed in my head, that I spoke about earlier, right? Yeah, I may be able to do that, and I may be able to again provide a running commentary, which is also something I've made note of somewhere in the notebook recently. That this, on some level, these broadcasts, it's like my stream of consciousness, but also like a running commentary. So it's still this doesn't necessarily rise above the level of the mundane, Christos. It is arguably novel, and it can be, right. But as more and more folks, you know, do begin to do similar style of broadcast or even vlogging, right? Because lest we forget, you know, I have the actual disclaimer in effect here. Hang on. I see Yurt. Shout out to the Yurt fella down there. But yeah, I've got the non-tent disclaimer out. Lest we forget, I'm not even trying to bit non-bit myself with the do better content, do more things. I think is a shout out to a very accomplished artist that I used to know, visual artist, who when she blasted off on DMT, some of her art temporarily took on a theme of DMT as do more things. So I'm presuming that's how she took her trip, or blast off, or whatever we're calling it. Her, for her to integrate her experience, presumably that's she was took it as a call to do even more art, and she was already making art on a regular basis. So that's a call that I myself would like to take on, or probably do take on. And in fact, I'm the one that proposed the original, contest of 90 straight days of content. And I'm pretty sure I've done that 90 consecutive days of content at least once. Although maybe not all the way to 90, maybe, I wasn't counting. So maybe I got to 88 and then missed a 24 hours, right? Who knows? Black seed oil. Yeah, I've heard good things. Yurt. Uh, I've heard good things. And I'm not going to do, when I talk about extreme fasting, I'm probably talking about total number of calories consumed in, let's say, 1 year, right? Because I'm gonna be eating pretty much every day for my, just because of how my digestion is with these issues that I'm balancing. All these issues off against each other in real time, over time, right? So that's me managing all of that somewhat astutely. I would assert. I like what I've been doing in those regards. Although my gallbladder, man, all this animal fat, it's been great, but my body's reminding me. of just the amount that can reasonably be assimilated in a this that becomes a formula of amount of especially fat or dietary fat or certain macronutrients, right? The so-called macros, which I know a thing or two about, of course, or I've studied, I should say. Um, so I'm probably most likely never going to go beyond 72 hours. Well, unless it's just, it's certainly possible that I will go beyond 72 hours, but not by choice. I mean, when it's up to me, right? Because I will, intentionally, I have for many years intentionally utilized fasting, for specific reasons, and would expect that to continue, right? Especially with this meat, realistically, instead of potentially, you know, and I wouldn't say that I'm overloading my system, but giving it as much as it can handle, right? Um, Part of that's a benefit because it's sort of, you know, it's a way that the body can't fully adapt away from that, right? So the organs and the body knows, okay, I need to be on my toes because he's probably going to keep doing this to some extent. But realistically, some version of a feast day where I go like maybe 50% beyond what I would normally eat in a day, and then just have like don't eat at all the next day, right? So don't eat for the rest of that day and don't eat all the next day, and then repeat that. That probably would have been a better use of this, 6 days of meat, basically. But I think there's probably something to be said for the just, hey, let's throw a bunch at the system and see how it handles it. And 2 more days to go, and it's doing pretty well, I have to say, overall. Although my gallbladder's talking to me right now, but kind of in a good way. I think it's looking forward to the next round of ox bile, the next 1,000 milligrams of ox bile. Mm. Well, and fasting itself, my experience of fasting is that the first 72 hours is the toughest. But then when a person sort of trains themselves on a version of, I was doing like a modified 1 meal a day, which doesn't even really make sense because technically you couldn't modify that. But I started, I did 1 meal a day for a while, for a time, and then I just chose something different. But anyway, it doesn't even matter. Eating within a window, I would say, of no more than 6 hours, but typically more like 3 or 4 hour window. All my food for the day in like a 4 hour window. So once a person gets used to just the not eating for 20 to 24 hours, um, hey, it's Christos, awesome. Once a person is used to that, then sort of take it from there. And then you get into the person being so-called fat adapted or adapted to, burning ketones, especially the brain, so when a person is inexperienced in making that switch from glucose to ketones, I guess it is, that can make the person feel kind of groggy and disoriented, and maybe their energy's low and they're cranky or whatever. But I found the more the person, eats some version of keto, just being in a state where a lot of ketones are being produced by the body, regardless of how that happens, even if it's just through fasting. There's something to that. The body sort of learns how to go back and forth. I've found way more efficiently without it being quite as abrupt or, off-putting. Because certainly people have these aversions to, anything just uncomfortable that they perceive as uncomfortable or disorienting. Certainly, most folks, and that is a feature of the human in many respects. But what's on your mind, Christos? Good to see you, brother.
Hey, good to see you. I know you're about to end as OTW starts up, so and I'll
Oh
definitely be
yeah, thanks
going
for
over
reminding me.
there. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
But
I forgot all about it. I was just rambling, but yeah,
well, that's good. Maybe.
yeah. I'm glad you
Um,
reminded me, though. Yeah.
yeah, me too. So before we end this out, you brought up the DMT. As everyone knows, I'm a crazy person. I like my DMT. But no, for real though, I've seen people do adaptations of acronyms in general, whether it's this Midwest music rap duo from Kansas City, Missouri, Cess Crew, Constant Energy Struggles, and each album they made CES a different acronym for the theme of their music and whatnot. So
Oh,
it's like
nice.
taking it back to DMT.
Ah,
I know Yurt knows Kambada, this rap artist who's very talented and definitely influenced somewhat through like mind altering substances, but he has two songs, one called DMT and the other called LSD. And basically, I guess this wouldn't technically be alliteration, but it's not like every single word, but throughout the rap, he's using the acronym DMT, coming up with different words
nice.
that start with those letters and tying in all these different concepts. So Lucifer, Satan, Devil, that's one thing he says. Dimensional mind travel for DMT and so on. So I
Nice.
just want to suggest everyone go check out Kambada.
Cool.
And then there's some other music out there you may find through him as well. But these are some really
Is
good artists.
this the proper spelling for the boomers here who need to know
Yeah,
what to look for?
I'll put it in the private chat
What's,
and the live chat after I.
right.
Oh, I'll just say right now, CAMBATTA. Yeah, that's
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
and a thought experiment. Yep.
Right on.
But yeah, you just all I wanted to say this was because you mentioned the person you knew that was making art and
Yes.
did the whole do more things.
Well, and specifically
concept.
real quick, was a high level visual artist, to be sure. High fucking level, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, that's definitely worth pointing out because someone can do DMT art and just look like some coloring crayons and whatnot. Maybe it is psychedelic.
Well,
But
no,
then,
she
yeah,
was already
high level.
already
Sure.
established as a high level visual artist.
Totally. So, like,
Yep.
yeah, I follow you. So, like an Amanda Sage type, Alex Gray. Yeah.
Well, I'm just talking about skill level alone, not necessarily acclaimed.
Yeah, I'm talking about skill level too.
Yeah, high fucking level. And I know you can when you see it, you know it. You know, I know it when I see it. You know,
Yeah, man.
it's undeniable, right?
Yeah, it's divine.
Yep, exactly.
Divinely inspired, often you can tell. But yeah, that's all.
Cool, man. Thanks for
Yeah,
the
thanks,
reminder. So we're gonna wrap up and get out of here and let y'all let's all go enjoy OTW News, the Grand Rising Show,
Yeah.
which I believe is live right about now. Thanks for y'all letting me do a little audience warm up, if that's what this was. Certainly appreciate that. Indeed, thank you, sir, Dominic. So we'll go ahead and see what Mr. OTW News has in store. And you never know, I might just start popping up on panels again, although probably not today as I wind down. I still have, I've got the rest of this vape and then like 7 more that have anywhere between like, 2 and 10 hits a piece left. So I think I'll be wrapping that up today. Got to be careful because I definitely don't want to inhale all the way to just the last drop right through this these whatever these vapes are. But anyway, appreciate y'all for being here. Let me get out of here. I guess I can only really do that by either stop talking or click in stream. So we'll do that now. Thanks for watching.